This is Talking Law on Radio 97. If you have a question about, well, just about anything to do with the law, we're going to talk about an interesting subject in just a second. Make sure you put it into an email and send it to us. And the best way to check out the address is just go to radio97.com.au, scroll down the page a little bit, and there's a couple of ways of getting to us, either through the email or the Facebook. It doesn't matter. But do that. Send it to Despina. Just go to radio97.com.au and look for the address. And then whatever your legal question is, Despina, happy to answer it for you here on Talking Law.
Alrighty.
Here's an interesting one.
It's an interesting one. Right before the break, you said, can you marry your cousin in Australia? This is just a topic that has popped up in conversation. I don't even know how, with Despina, Wayne and I. And we thought it would be quite interesting to break down the marriage legislation, some facts that you may not know is legal in Australia. So, Despina, let's start off with that one. Can you marry your cousin?
Well... You can.
You can.
Apparently so. So when this question came to me, I thought, I haven't really had cause to look at the Marriage Act for a long time.
Yep.
It was an act that was, it's a federal act, so a Commonwealth Act that applies to all states and territories, and it was established in 1961. So I had cause to read the Act, and I found some interesting things. Let's talk about prohibited marriages, first of all, and what's classed as a void marriage. So a polygamous marriage is where you have more than one husband or wife, and that is invalid in Australia.
Yep, so only one husband or wife at a time in Australia.
Exactly. But what is the interesting aspect of this is that there is a section in the Family Law Act, which is another Commonwealth Act, is Section 6. What that section says is that polygamous marriages that are recognised outside of Australia, so if they've already occurred in other countries, for example, Islamic countries, where they do permit that, then it actually is recognised in Australia.
That's amazing. So if you fell in love with two people here, you have a throuple kind of relationship, you could possibly go overseas, get hitched, come back, and it be recognised.
Well, I suppose, but then you have to look at how if you go into another country, are you just allowed to marry if you're not a citizen?
Depending on the laws.
So I think that raises some other issues there. Yes, but if you come from an Islamic country, for example, because we know that though they do allow marriages with more than one partner, and you then come to Australia and you live here, that marriage that you've had outside Australia is recognized in Australia as a valid marriage. Interesting. So another aspect of the Marriage Act we talked about, I suppose something basic, but it's interesting to talk about still, is what age do you have to be to get married?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question. Yep.
So, yeah, good question. So typically you would think, okay, you've got to be 18. However, you can be under 18 years of age. So what the Act says is that a person over 16 but under 18 years of age can marry, but only with the consent of their parent, a relevant person that's defined in the Act, a judge or a magistrate. So it is possible. As to whether you should, that's another question, morally and otherwise. But, however, the Marriage Act does provide for that. Now, prohibited relationships. So there is a definition in the Act. That's what you would expect. What is a prohibited relationship? And it goes into some detail, but I suppose to answer your specific question at the beginning of the segment. So a prohibited relationship is one between a brother and sister. Okay, so we should all expect that.
Yep.
That includes half-blood and full blood.
Okay.
Okay. Or between a person and an ancestor, which is defined to mean a parent or grandparent, or a descendant, which is also defined to mean a child or grandchild. Now, that definition that is in the Act actually extends and applies to an adopted child as well. So that's interesting too.
Okay, so it's not just blood relatives in this case.
So it's not. So it includes an adopted child. So in the relevant section is that an adopted child or the relationship an adopted child has with their parent is the same relationship as what a natural child has. And that is the reasoning behind including adopted children in prohibited relationships. So it therefore follows that it's not unlawful for cousins to marry one another, because cousins aren't included in that definition of prohibited relationships. So it's interesting.
Yeah, so interesting. So even though adoption, obviously, it's not blood, it completely makes sense. You grow up together. But in terms of cousin, you do share that DNA, but it's fine. You can go get married.
Exactly. So I thought if anyone was curious, we have answered some of those questions. So what's a prohibited relationship? What's the age of consent for the marriage? Are polygamous marriages recognised as valid or not in this country? We've talked about. So yes, maybe that's answered some burning questions that other listeners may have had. I don't know, but anyway.
Well, you answered mine and Way's question, so we are stoked.
That's
Despina.
true. And look, you never know when that might come up in a trivia competition or something. You'll know the answer now.
Exactly.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Despina. And if anyone does want to get in touch with you directly, whether it's about marriage, property, anything else under the sun,
Or whether you can marry your cousin.
where can they go?
So they can phone the office 55291 294, or they can email us at info@prialalegal.com.au. And then if anyone's missed the segment or only caught the end of this today, it'll be uploaded on YouTube on the weekend.
Yeah, simply search Priala Legal, Priala. Thanks again, Despina and Wayne.
And we'll be back same time next week.
Great. See you then, guys.
See you then.